All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Post Game Podcast where I'm talking to former athletes about life after the game, what they're up to in business, entrepreneurship, and much more. My guest today spent 7 years in the NFL as a quarterback from 2014 to 2020, playing for teams like the Chicago Bears, Miami Dolphins, Detroit Lions, and New York Jets. He also put up some incredible numbers at San Jose State and is widely considered one of the best, if not the best quarterback in program history. His name is David Fales. So awesome to have David on, just hearing his perspective about the realities of what it's like being a backup quarterback in the NFL, playing behind some names you might recognize, like Matthew Stafford and Jay Cutler, and then what he's been up to since retiring from football. He's transitioned into tech sales. He's also super involved with Pro Athlete Community, which is an organization that helps current and former professional athletes navigate career transitions. So David, thanks, man, for coming on. Appreciated hearing about the grind, man. Just really how you went through it and sharing some of the mental side as well. I think that's super important. So appreciate you tuning in and hope you enjoy this conversation with former NFL quarterback David Fales. All right, good deal. David Fales, recorded, man. Appreciate you coming on and just talking a little bit before about how you play in the NFL for 7 years. You've transitioned out of the NFL now and you're working in tech and tech sales, and just how everybody has to do that at some point, but there's not a ton of resources out there for people to kind of navigate that. So yeah, man, just thanks for joining me and looking forward to sharing the story here.
Yeah, same, man. Thanks for setting this up and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely want to go into your NFL career a little bit. And one of the things I sent you over is when did you first become a QB? But the reason I'm curious about that is because it's a super specific journey, super specific position. There's all the leadership and all that's tied into it. But do you kind of remember what led you down that path and what interested you of becoming a quarterback in the first place?
Yeah, it was 8th grade, so I was playing Pop Warner. And the year before, I was probably I wasn't as tall as I grew a foot in that 7th to 8th grade year. 7th grade, I was a backup right guard and a backup outside linebacker. So I'm just getting torched by these kids who are way better than me, never played. I was a 5th quarter warrior and didn't even think about playing quarterback. And then 8th grade comes around, I grow a foot. I'm all lanky, I can't move. I wanted to be the running back because that's what all the best players were. They're a running back, so I was trying to do that. I was not gonna play there. Nobody wanted to do quarterback, so I was like, no, sure, I'll try. And then that's how it started. Didn't do great that year. Freshman year comes around, I stick with it. There's 15 guys that go out for it. I end up rotating with a kid. He ends up beating me out. He starts probably the 3rd game of the season, gets his ribs hurt. I go in, throw a touchdown, and then end up starting the rest of the year. But I wasn't very good. I remember the freshman coach told the JV coach, you'll only be able to run the ball, you'll never be able to throw it. And I end up getting my mentor, who I just talked to this week. He was a Wall Street guy. 9/11 happened. He moved out to the West Coast, retired in his 20s, but just loved football and dedicated a large part of his life learning the position and wanting to give back and coach. And he bounced around at a few other high schools and JUCOs in that area. And then my spring going in my sophomore year, he came to my high school and just showed up at our gym one day. He's like, hey, I'm coaching. I'm going to train the quarterbacks. And he was retired, obviously, so he had all the time in the world. They would come out 5 to 6 days a week, 2 hours a day from my sophomore, junior, senior year. And for my freshman and my junior year, that's when I was I became the guy. I was like, oh, there's a chance. And I lit it up my sophomore year. Same thing, sophomore to junior year, spent that whole offseason with him. I was watching, he was a West Coast guy, and I had no idea what all this stuff was. I was just I'm going to keep showing up to this guy's house and the field. We're going to watch Joe Montana drop, and we're going to learn the West Coast reads and progressions and how to read a defense from that standpoint. And those 3 or 4 years built a huge foundation that I wasn't even aware of until I got to my junior or senior year at San Jose State, because you start realizing a lot of guys are just naturally gifted and talented, and they don't have the understanding of how to read a defense or go through a progression, or even their footwork in today's day, where a lot of it's shotgun, and sometimes it doesn't matter for kids because they never have to drop under center. So that's kind of how it started. Was that like freshman to sophomore year? Like I rose my hand in 8th grade. Nobody else wanted to do it, and then I probably would have if I didn't meet him. I mean, I definitely would not have played past high school.
Yeah, man. Wow, that's awesome. It's also funny how you still remember that. What did you say? Middle school or early high school? That
8th grade, I
guy
remember because
who said you guys better not run the ball, or you better not throw the ball because you'll never be able to.
Oh, I remember everything. It's
Yeah.
it was because the JV coach told me, he's like, yeah, they told me we'll never be able to throw the ball. And I think he's definitely trying to like piss me off and light a fire or something, but I know they didn't like me. I mean, they didn't even start me until the kid got hurt. And then, yeah, no, I remember I still like, there's things my mom said, like, I'll never forget my mom, someone knocked on her door when I was like a sophomore that year, freshman going in my sophomore year, that same year, because there's supposed to be a Hollister kid transferring. And like, so I don't even know why. Someone knocked on the door and asked if I played football or quarterback, or they were talking about it. And my mom's like, well, we don't know yet. There's somebody transferring. And I was like, you traitor. Like, oh, and I still tell her today, and she denies it. I'm like, my mom will never forget this. And I think she tries to say it was reverse psychology or something, but it worked.
There you go. Yep. You had a bunch of people trying to light a fire under your ass,
Yeah.
but your mom included. But so you've got this story, even from that point. I mean, obviously, and it sounds like in high school, and then when you were getting recruited by schools, people wanted you, but along the way, it was just a lot of these quote unquote transitions, like bouncing around from NFL teams. I mean, the college story itself is crazy because you go to Nevada, and then was Kaepernick your age at Nevada? Like he was the same year, or he was right before?
He was. It was going into, it was his junior year that I was there.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember when I got there, they were like, yeah, he's gonna get drafted, and I was so naive, I had no idea. Like I was like, oh, Kaepernick's good. You know, social media wasn't as big, so I wasn't like tuned into who he was. I knew they did well, but so it was his junior year that I was there that fall of 09.
So you were, because you were there for the fall, right? And then you go to JUCO, and then you're getting recruited by Indiana State, and where you ended up, San Jose State. So kind of like what was your mindset throughout that time? Like just kind of, because there's a lot of uncertainty in that. Do you remember just kind of what you were thinking during that time period?
Yeah, it was so just going from Nevada to JUCO, that first fall at Nevada, when I first committed, and I never should have went there. The coach who was my mentor, who taught me everything I know, he's like, don't go there. In high school, he was telling, which was crazy, in high school when we were trying to get recruited, and now you have Huddle and Twitter and all these other ways you can reach out to coaches to try to get recruited if you're not like a 4 or 5 star guy. I don't know who gets visibility these days, but I was a guy who didn't have any stars, and we're putting together like our DVDs or cover letters, and I'm cold calling and cold emailing all these coaches. I remember my coach saying this to my mom. He's on speakerphone. He's like, you need to find the school that has put out the most NFL quarterbacks. And I still remember, I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Like, he thinks I'm an NFL quarterback. And this is after my junior year. And so when we had Nevada, Oregon State, San Jose State, Utah, and Kansas State, all that I connected with and said, yeah, fly out. We'll do a private workout and watch you. Nevada was the first one on that one, so I was fresh. I threw really well. San Jose wouldn't talk to me at the time. It was a different coach because I didn't run a fast enough 40. I thought Oregon State was going to happen. Like I threw really well there, but they'd already committed to Cody Vaz. They ended up offering the next day. And then Utah and Kansas State, basically, like Kansas State told me, he started suggesting D2 schools after the workout. Warren Ruggiero, I ended up beating him when I was at San Jose State. We played him at the bowl game in Bowling Green, and he was the OC. So that was cool to beat him. But I ended up going to Nevada. I should have never went there, obviously, because I'm not a Kaepernick. Like I'm not a 4.4 guy. Nothing on my tape showed I was a runner or had the potential to turn into a runner. Because even Kaepernick was like a pro style quarterback in Turlock. He was slow. He ran like a 4.9 out of high school. And then he got super strong. But I think like you could look at him and be like, we get stronger. Those legs will move. Like in high school, he was a 4.9 guy. Coach Holt's like, hey, this used to be a passing offense before Kaepernick. We want to go back to, I think it was Jeff Rowe or Jim Rowe. I was like, sweet, let's do it. And I get there. They also recruited a kid who ran a 4.5, and he tore it up, and I couldn't do anything. So they go to a bowl that year, like 3 months into my time there, and Coach Hull says, you're not traveling, and you can stay here, but you'll never play. He referred me to as like there's like a third string quarterback that was on scholarship that had been there for a few years and never played. And I immediately told him I was leaving. I ended up going back to Nevada, and that like first spring that I was out of Nevada to midway through that first year was probably like the hardest, but like the had the most impact on the rest of my career, because I was like, I had to rotate the first 5 games. I wasn't just handed the starter. I thought like, oh, I'm going to be a bounce back D1 guy. I'm going to walk in and be the guy. Like, there's no chance anyone else, he's going to let anybody else start. But the best thing that happened to me was him like not giving me it and making me rotate with this guy who was a returning starter there. And it was hard because I was like, I might not go back to school. Like, this might be it. And I had I read this book called Mind Gym during that time, and got like, I was so worried about how many reps I was getting. What's the other quarterback doing? Am I doing better than him? So many things that were out of my control. And reading that book, and also kind of hitting rock bottom to a sense, I was like, I got nothing to lose. Like, I already lost scholarship. I'm not starting. I'm rotating with this guy the first 5 games. And I figured out this, reading this book, Mind Gym, just becoming super intentional on like a few things every day. Like, I don't care what happens. I'm going to make sure I don't, like, my first step under center is going to be good. And then like my stance is going to be good. If I do those 2 things, everything else is going to be fine. I just kept getting better. And then, ended up, starting the back half of the season. We went 1-4 when we were rotating, went 4-1 once he named me the starter. And then I ended up getting a scholarship from Wyoming in between those 2 years. My dad lives in Wyoming. So I went out there to visit him, and I stopped by their spring bowl, and I told them like, hey, cool if I come say hi and stop by. And they offered me a walk-on during that time, but then one of their quarterbacks quit. And they said, hey, if you pay for a summer course, it'll be a couple $100. We'll put you on scholarship as soon as training camp starts. And so I went. I was out there for a month. I realized they weren't giving me any reps with this freshman that they wanted to start. It wasn't like a true competition, which I thought they had said it was going to be. And so I was there for a month, and then I just left again. Went back to JUCO. Had a really good year, and then Indiana State was the only thing that came. And John DeFilippo, who ended up coaching, he was in Philly for a little bit. He was the guy who was at San Jose State at the time. He shoots me a text like, hey, I'm going to come check you out. I didn't even know who you were, but I saw your stats, so I got to come look at you. And next thing I know, I work out for him. Pretty sure it's illegal, but he's like, after the workout, he's like, you're going to come to San Jose State and throw for 3,000 plus yards the next 2 years. And still didn't offer me, but Coach Mike McIntyre, and Terry Malley ended up coming the next week. Go through the same workout. Don't offer me yet. And then the day after Christmas, they offered me, and then go to San Jose State. John DeFilippo ends up going into the NFL like a month after I commit. I think he started with the Raiders, and then he went on his rounds of teams. But and then it was just perfect timing.
Yeah. So that there's really like you're not in one place for a long time necessarily in college.
No.
What was it like Mind Gym? Because you can read a lot of these books, and I think I read Mind Gym at one point. But what was it about that? Like, there's all these self-help types of books and everything, but actually applying that into being a better quarterback and just a better human. Like, what can you just walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Gary Mack wrote it, who passed away, but and what I realized once I got in the NFL, I think a lot of high-performing guys just naturally do it because we watch so much film. That's why we watch film. It basically gave me a structure like early in my career around visualization. So like, hey, I watch 2 hours of tape. I know what they're gonna do, and so before the night before games and like an hour before, I have specific plays that we scripted specifically for this team. And I'm also walking in like what used to be my quicksand. If you've seen the replacements, remember when they're like, "What's your biggest fear?" Quicksand. And I was like, that
Yeah.
that was like my quicksand is like not being able to throw a completion, not being able to like seeing something never seen before. Like they're gonna come out with something we didn't watch. But when you're able to, I go through this process where I like literally close my eyes, say the play, see the defense. If I'm going through 1, 2, 3, feeling the touchdown, you feel the grass. Like you kind of put yourself in there, in the situation, and it's like your mind can't tell the difference between whether it's your visualization or reality. There's other books that talk about this stuff too. One that's like around 10S that I've read, but the mind gym was like a simple read for me to put a practice in around visualization. And I, over the course from my first year in JUCO to my 6th year in the league, that like you cannot, I would bet you cannot tell me it doesn't work. Like, cause the days I didn't do it, it was noticeably like I'm a little bit slow or I'm a little bit off. And then there weren't a lot of days that I didn't do it, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right. So that also interests me, or I'm curious about how you talk about like during the weeks. It was like during the weeks you would not be going through the motions, but it would just almost be a different mindset. And then come the game time, because you hear that you're like, you have to practice the same way you're going to play with that intensity type of thing. But how did you, what was that like? Like you could just flip this switch, and then it sounds like under pressure you perform, because there was games against, I think, Stanford, right? Like you guys won a big game against Stanford in college, but like, what was that like when the lights come on, be like, all right, let's go. It's game time.
Yeah, I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. I don't know if I've figured out how to tap in, like flip the switch in life after ball, but in during football, I was such a high anxiety guy, like Monday through Friday if we're playing on Saturday, or NFL Tuesday, Saturday, but like afraid that I wasn't gonna be able to perform or do the thing the week before. Sometimes when you get in flow and you're doing things so fast without even thinking, I'll watch a tape. I'm like, I remember thinking this, but like, how the heck did I make that throw? Like, how did I do that? Like, how am I gonna do this again? And so I think like that fear would drive me to like and just the relationship with my teammates and stuff, like not wanting to let them down because I see them all working. But more so definitely the fear of me not being able to show up and perform and do my job. That was like the high anxiety guy, and I couldn't. And then I'll get into this, but like on game day, I would work so much, like, and go through the visualization. I'm like, the story in my head of like, what if they do this? What if they do this? I'm like, I got answers for it all. Like, I got a plan. I don't care. And so I'm like, flip a switch. I'm like, these people are here they're about to get a show. Like, they're here to see me today. And like, I don't know. I haven't figured out. I don't know if it's a healthy way to be, because I realized being that high anxiety guy isn't a good place a state of mind to be in like civilian life. So I'm just trying to find a place to get in flow and relax and not necessarily be like the killer mode that I was on game day, but not the high anxiety guy that's like stressing about everything and everything's going. That's so somewhere in the middle there, but I think that also kind of hurt me a little bit in the NFL, because I wasn't ever a great practice player, and it was hard for me to flip that switch when I know I'm not going to get hit. I wanted to be perfect in practice instead of like just being in flow. And I would kind of, if you saw like my career, I kind of get to a point where I'm about to get cut. It happened 2 or 3 times. Like I was with a lot of the same staff, so they were pretty transparent. My second year, I remember Cutler and Dow Loggins, who's the head coach at Appalachian State now, but he was the quarterback coach. He's like, they're going to cut you. Like, this is your last game, so let it rip. And then I go out there and I'm like, I don't care. This is it. This is the last day. Like, I'm unloading everything, and I ball out. They can't cut me because I did so well. Did the same thing in 2017, 17, 18. Yeah, it didn't help me in the NFL because I wouldn't practice how I play. And I couldn't really I couldn't like flip that switch, get the adrenaline going. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure the NFL is different. Just obviously these days, college is a business too. Even when you were playing, it was a business, but it's like the NFL, it's a business. So, but you were able to hang on not hang on. You had a 7-year career. and you played behind guys like Jay Cutler. I wanted to ask you about, because I was watching the clip. You threw, was it one touch? One touchdown. It was like a 65-yard bomb. It was a dime to I forget his name. What was that receiver's name?
I forgot his name too. It was not just a normal name. What's his name? That's not gonna hit me right now. I can't remember anything these days. But that was a preseason. That was like, we're backed up on the one, and Gase. I was with Gase for 3 years, or no, 2 years with him at that point, and I was like, let's just throw a go ball. He's like, all right. So, and then because back then he wanted to it's preseason. He's like, let's just run the clock out. I'm like, and then we just do a little play fake, and the guy runs for 99 yards. But my one touchdown in the game that I got in was to Jarvis, like on a shuffle pitch.
That's what. Yeah. Okay.
But I threw I got a few preseason touchdowns. So,
yeah. There's some good highlight tapes on YouTube. Yeah, I was yeah. There's some good ones. But so like I feel like I keep saying this, but you were in a bunch of different cities. Did you ever feel like you were settled in the NFL? Did you ever feel like were you kind of always looking over your shoulder, like, I don't know if I can maybe do this for one more year?
Yeah. My wife always kind of reminds me, it was definitely stressful because I never had like a 2-year all guaranteed contract. So when my first couple of years, I would be P squad in 53, like I'd be up and down. But every Tuesday, you're kind of making the cut. So if you make it past 4 p.m. on Tuesday, you're either on the 53 the rest of the week. So if they cut me on Thursday, I'm still getting like accredited week and 53 money. So yeah, for a while, like my first 3 or 4 years, it was like that. Like, especially when I was up on the 53, I'm like, oh, are they going to bump me back down? Or are they going to cut me? When I was on P squad, I wasn't too worried about it, but it's definitely stressful. My 1 year was like 2018 when I was a vested vet, meaning like once I made the 53, like my contract was guaranteed. That was nice. My daughter was born that year. Ace had given me like a little signing bonus, and then also just like once I made it past like Tuesday on week 1, my contract was guaranteed. So I was like, sweet, like they're not gonna cut me. And Gase, like I was super fortunate to be around Gase for 5 years, and his whole staff, like Bo Hardigree, Dal Logan, a lot of people he brought with him. So it was nice. Like there's a lot of familiarity and pretty transparent. Like I could tell him, I could ask him like what's going on, like and a lot of things. Nothing really came out of left field too much, So that was nice.
Yeah. So you were also, I mean, when you get to that point, you're in the NFL, you're the best in the world at what you do, whatever, whether you're a wide receiver, even you as a quarterback, regardless of if you're starting or not, you're one of the best in the world at what you do. Like there's obviously the natural ability. And I've heard you say this about kind of Rodgers. It's like, no matter what he does, what you've seen in the last couple of years, he's doing kind of some of these crazy things, but he's still got a job and he's still going to be a star no matter what. But like, what are some of those guys that might not be super naturally gifted? How do they, what kind of qualities do they possess, you think, that allows them to get to that point? Is it mental or work ethic type of stuff? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like if you make it to the NFL, and when you compare yourself to that circle, like if we're all to throw together, you forget how gifted you are and how good you are, because everyone up there is like freaks. And so like when I'm throwing with Tannehill or Cutler or Stafford or Flacco, it's like shit, I might not ever, I'm never going to be able to do that. Like, so I need to figure this out. But if I go throw with any other, like they're like, wow, that's an NFL quarterback. I'm like, okay, exactly. But yeah, but it's so one, like when you talk about like I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly, but like those guys would, like Rodgers, like you could work your whole life and maybe never be able to do what he does. Will probably never be, like sorry, you will never be able to do what he does. Like there's a few guys that can sling the rock like him. Like Stafford's in there, like the best of the best. Like those are genetics. Like those are gifts. But those guys who stuck around, they're so smart. I think of Cutler that have been around, Tannehill, Stafford. Stafford is like so smart. They're able to retain everything, and there's nothing they haven't seen, and they can recall so fast. Like they're gifted from that standpoint, and then their just ability to communicate and get guys to follow them. But it's like I think of Stafford a lot. Like the dude grinds and he works hard and he's a normal person. He's not just some different alien. Like like he's just a normal guy who works really hard and wants to respect and lead his team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool. It's like super refreshing to be around those people. And then flip side, you have to have all those things, right, to lead a team in any environment. Like be a guy, be able to communicate, be the hardest worker, be smart, carry the flag. But then at quarterback in the NFL, you have to be a freak. The top guys are freaks. And so and a lot of that stuff, like, yes, they work hard and they train and you have to do that. There's nothing you can, like, I will never be able to throw the ball like Stafford or the things Mahomes does. Like I can work it a million times. Like that's a gift.
Right. So there's both sides of that coin. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you can work your ass off to a certain point, but there's some guys that are just so naturally gifted. Like you're talking about the communication. That this is interesting to me because as an Eagles fan, I just want to maybe get your thoughts on this because Carson Wentz, like he was, what was that? The year that they won the Super Bowl, 2018 was the first year, and he was probably going to be the MVP most likely if he didn't get hurt. But a couple years after that, you kind of hear these stories come out about how he kind of just did his own thing. He maybe had his guys that he stuck with. Like, who was it? I think Golden Tate. I heard him on maybe Busting with the Boys or something like that talking about this. But it's like that ability to communicate. But even Jalen Hurts, like he's a quiet guy, but maybe he just leads by example, which I think is something that you talk about for yourself. Like, yeah, what's that? I would love to just hear your thoughts on that, like the communication styles.
I think the difference with Jalen Hurts is they've had rough patches. And all of my time in football, it doesn't matter what league you're in, everyone thinks they're going to win the championship week 1, 2, and especially if you're on a good team, it's easy. But you really figure out the character and who people are when you've lost 5 games and you haven't won anything, and everyone's saying it's your fault or it's someone else's fault, and then that's when you figure out who is this guy, and like the character is actually revealed. And I think, and I've never met Carson Wentz, but I've heard similar things like that too. And I think like he might have been going through that. I don't know what was told from upstairs. There might have been some communication and disconnect there that he was probably mad about. Like he had just come off his 2018 year, and then it kind of dropped off significantly after that. But I don't know what was told to him from leadership, and some guys handle it differently. It is a business, so he probably was just thinking about himself and mad, and then that gets reflected across the team, and then you get a perception, that perception of you. I don't know. I haven't met him, but I just know that like I know that real characters are revealed in the hard times, and I know I don't know Jalen, but I again know people who've been around him, and like when they went through that rough patch. I don't know if it was not last year, but the year before that, when they won like 11 games or something, and then they just fell off, and they were saying, is it Sirianni's fault? Is it his fault? Who is it? Is he a Super Bowl quarterback? Yeah. And you didn't see him come out. You didn't hear anything about him being a bad teammate. You didn't hear anything. Like the guy kept doing the same thing, showed the same person every day. Like there's so many different variables in the NFL, and the Eagles have had a good team for a while, and Carson might have, I don't know if he helped that or was just kind of a plug into that and got to ride that wave. I don't know, but like there's just so many variables to it. So it's kind of tough to have a good team, but yeah, I don't know. I just know that like on the teams that I've been in, I was on more bad teams than good. Everything is good in the beginning of the year, and then you start to weed through who's actually going to be here for the next year or is actually like a good teammate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's easy to be happy and even keel when things are going well, for sure. But all right, man. Well, so I want to ask you about just the retirement from football and man, you played seven. I know earlier I said hanging on. That's definitely the wrong terminology because you played
No,
7 years.
I
I
was
think
hanging
you.
on.
All right, you could say it, not me, but like you made, not to talk about money or whatever, but I think career earnings were north of like $3 million or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
if that's correct. And
yeah,
then you have to make that decision to retire ultimately,
yeah,
um, and not continue to hang on, go play in the CFL type of things. Just like navigating that, and we can get into this a little bit, just how other guys maybe you play with have navigated that transition out of playing sports. But what was that experience like for you, man? Just you playing the NFL and it's over. Like now you have to find a real job.
yeah, yeah. It was hard. I didn't think it was going to end like that year because it was the COVID year and they changed the practice squad rules. So I thought I was going to at least get that. But 21 started that off season rolled around. I talked to my agent, nothing had come up. I told them I didn't want to do the XFL or USFL or CFL because I just had my son too, my second child. So, and I was kind of pissed. I was mad that I got cut. Nobody picked me up. A little bitter. And then I was like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Yes, I made 3 million, but cut that in half. Like I half that with the tax, and then whatever 3% went to my agent every year. So yeah, enough to give me some cushion and time, but not enough to like never make any money or do anything again. So I started figuring like my brother was in tech sales, started just networking, and I'd done that every off season too. But it's kind of like putting your toe in the water, and I was so locked into me being a football player that it was hard to even think of like life after ball or what that was going to look like. And like if I could talk to my younger version of me is like working on that, right? Like making myself understand like this is happening. Like if you make 10 million, 20 million, like you're going to have 40, 50 years, hopefully longer of the rest of your life. Like you need to set some stuff up, whether it's financially or just like what you're going to do with the rest of your time, because you're not just going to do nothing. Like, because I see that even with guys who made a lot of money, it's like they still go through a hard time figuring out what they're going to
Yeah, man.
do.
Yeah, you say that about your mentor, right? I think he was a Wall Street guy. You talk about
Yeah.
like even he made all the money in the world, but he still has to figure out how's he going to spend his time and everything like that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And he's been super helpful, but he just has such a different perspective on life and money. And like, I don't know. I want to get to his level in terms of just mindset. But I started networking just back to the transition. Realized I want to do tech sales just because you're able to do it remote. You can make good money and kind of run your own business within other people's businesses from a sales perspective. And so get into Zoom, do that for, you had to do the BDR thing for a year, was remote, was like probably the hardest year of my life. Just figuring out like what motivates me. Like, hey, why am I going to work out? Why am I going to eat clean? Hey, why do anything? And I was like, didn't have answers to a lot of those questions outside of like for my kids, but like I was such a driven person and kind of externally motivated from the attention that you get with football and me being David Fales, the quarterback. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is David Fales and no longer the quarterback. But maybe somebody would reference that I played football and we could talk about it and stuff. But I used to, like, without even realizing it, that would stroke my ego all the time. And now I'm not that guy anymore. I'm like, what do I even have to offer? I don't know. And then, so that was a hard year, like really like hard 1 to 2 years trying to figure out. Midway through my Zoom time, the Minnesota Vikings call, like that 21 off season, and the whole room got COVID. The Minnesota has always liked me. Like in between the Dolphins years, I thought I was going to get an offer. I went and visited them. They ended up going with someone else. But they also liked me out of the draft. I thought I was going to get drafted by them. It ended up being Teddy Bridgewater. And so they call and they're like, "Hey, come out." I had my agent was telling me that there were a few teams asking, but I still wasn't picking up a ball. Like I was like, okay, just let me know. Like I just let me go feel it, make sure it feels normal. I'm like, all right, if they call, like I'll be all right. And then they say send your second vaccine card. So I ended up getting the second vaccine, and it was only 8 days and not 14. And you needed to, at that time, 14 days to be deemed fully vaccinated. And I had no idea. I was like, I would have forged this thing. I would have like, are you really like 6 days is why I can't come out now? So that was another hard time, because I was like, I probably would have. They ended up cutting the whole room outside of Kirk Cousins and I was like, I sure have been fine. So that kind of like brought me back a little bit in my transition, because I kind of put the helmet back on and I was like, I'm back. It's David Bales, the quarterback, is back. And then I had to go back to the tech gig like 3 days later. So yeah, it was a rough year.
So then how's it going since? Like, how's it?
Yeah.
Because you were Zoom, and then, yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. By the way, those your kids? How you got a couple kids, right?
Yeah. About to be 7 in September, my daughter, and then my son turns 5 this Sunday.
Nice. All right. So they're keeping you busy.
Yeah. I know. I'm surprised they haven't kicked the door in yet.
Love it. But so you were at Zoom, and then now you're with Docker. So you're staying. Like, is that I'm sure you're still kind of going through this, but is tech sales what you think you see yourself doing for?
The
foreseeable future?
I think I do like it, because you can make, like, some of these guys are making 7 figures, a good amount of money. Like, I was like, I just want to have the flexibility to do what I want and essentially like run my business within a business and have less risk of funding starting a business. If I had to go into office, I don't know if I would like it. I did, like, when I was at Zoom, they had a few days where like once a quarter we'd come to office, and I was like, man, if I had to do this every day. But because I've been remote, it's been nice. I've started dabbling in real estate. I've got a few fix and flips I'm doing, like a limited partner and some other new builds in Tennessee. So that stuff is exciting too, and I think I can do it on the side. But yeah, I think tech sales is fun, and I tell a lot of football guys that aren't really familiar, and I had really no idea what it was about either, if it wasn't for my brother, he's a year and a half younger than me, who was a quarterback as well. So really close with him. He was kind of keeping me in the loop, and this guy got into Zoom pre-IPO, then they go public, dude makes $1 million overnight, and I'm like, wow, okay. And there's, you got it. Yeah. So,
yeah. So, yeah, I want to ask you too about the pack community, what is it? Pro athlete community. Just like, what was your, or how did you get introduced with that, and then your involvement, and then kind of what are they doing for current athletes and helping them make that transition? Is that more so like investment opportunities, or kind of just these conversations around, hey, now we're done playing sports, what are we doing now?
Both, everything.
Both.
Yeah. So Caleb Thornhill first founded it. I was with him in the Dolphins. He was the player personnel guy there, and he saw a need for guys getting out, and there not really being a lot of resources for guys transitioning out. So he would, every offseason, would do this Dolphins business combine where he would do a mini pack event. He'd connect you with real estate, different speakers, all these different avenues, just to try to get guys exposed to things, because there's not much. And so that was his first version. And he had been talking about, and this is 2017, 18, like, I think he was partnering with Arizona State at the time, because if you're a vested player, you get some money towards tuition reimbursement. And he wanted to find a way where it didn't have to come out of pocket for guys, but it would tap into a resource or something that we already get because we're vested, and a lot of guys weren't using it. So we get, depending on how invested, you get like 80,000 and maybe a little bit less towards education when you're done playing. So then he partnered with Chip Palchik, who was the former CEO of 2U, and which is an online education platform. And before that, he founded Hooked on Phonics, which I'm sure you probably remember. But yeah,
I do.
He was that guy.
He's the founder of Hooked on Phonics. Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. And then went on then to 2U, and then when Caleb was starting with Pack, he was moving out of 2U, so it timed up perfectly. And now he's partnered with Caleb and bringing all his CEO buddies and like these like huge connections to these events that they have. I think it's like 2 or 3 events they do one for current players, similar to like a business combine that Caleb was doing, and then they have a few for guys transitioning out. And it's everything. It's refreshing because it's like getting back in the locker room, expose you to just everything that we kind of talked about in terms of the mental side of transitioning. They expose you to whatever industry you want. They'll kind of give you a high overview of everything, but then you're able to do a deep dive into whether it's real estate. Usually they'll have different ones based on the location there. Like there was a tech sales one that we did a deep dive with Dell. So there's all these different things. And you go to these events where they're really nice, they're well put together, really well structured. You get connected with all these former players, and you realize, oh, we're all going to do the same thing, depending on where you are in your journey. Like that's super cool to connect with guys. Some guys are coming back for their second, like I've been to 2. And then post pack, they have weekly calls, and there's like a performance coach or a life coach where we talk about everything that from the transition to how we're doing to where we're at, and trying to put together tools to help you from just a mindset standpoint. And then also you have weekly calls with the vertical that you pick. So maybe you picked real estate, maybe you picked a podcast. There was a podcast vertical once. You picked different things. So they've done a good job, and they keep iterating and dialing it in. And there's just so many guys that like it and need it, and we have the resources available to spend on it. So yeah, it's they've done a great job.
Yeah. It seems cool. Yeah, I've seen it on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever, and it just seems like a really cool platform because, to your point, yeah, there are, and I said this to you, I feel like you see a lot of the stories, a lot of the highlights of super, super successful former athletes, and then on the opposite end of the spectrum, the guys who maybe go bankrupt or that type of thing. But there's not as many opportunities for people who are in the middle. I never played professionally, but I was Division I college baseball guy, and you just kind of go on with life, and there's all those lessons like you've talked about. I mean, I appreciate you talking about, even the mind gym and like the visualization. It's hard, but because you said I have a harder time doing that these days in my day-to-day life. Like, Are you doing anything these days for that?
It's hard. No, I have to refer back. Like I have conversations with like my mentor that I talked to, Peter Goodson, other former athletes that have transitioned and have started business and stuff. And it's like, it is hard, but the same things apply. Like it's pretty simple if you break it down. And my best days are when I approach it similar to the days how I approached that first spring in JUCO, where I'm like, hey, I'm going to control 2 things today. If there's not anything I'm going to do, I'm going to walk into the house with a smile, good energy, and be in a good headspace. Like make sure I check in with myself. Cause like I'm naturally a high anxiety guy. Like I wake up early. I'm going to go work out. I've been up for 2.5 hours before anybody in my house has been up. So like, I'm going to come in with a different energy when these guys, my kids, wife, are just getting the day going. And sometimes like that doesn't always connect if I just like am not thinking about it. Like for a while there, when I was first like trying to become more self-aware of myself and who this person is, and not in my football routine, because for up until I was 30, I've literally done the same thing every spring, summer, fall. And like someone is telling me where to be. I have a schedule, I have everything. So like becoming aware that I need this, and like no one else is putting this together for me now. So I think the root is just become a little somewhere. I would start journaling, just like check in with myself, and then also just like attention on how I'm going to show up today. Like what are the 1 or 2 things that I need to do today, and that's a win. And similar to how I approached football and NPC, it's like but you have to sit there and think. Otherwise, like 10 things are going to show up and hit me, and I'm going to react and not necessarily show up the way I want to. So I think just being intentional.
Awesome, man. I love it. Cool. We'll wind down here. I saw you play some golf these days too. Is that how you're keeping yourself staying competitive, getting out there? Or
yeah, that I think like that's where I'm able to tap into the flow. Like now that I get streaky, but I'm definitely in it right now. I'm on a good streak of playing a little more and getting dialed. But those are where the I'm starting to tap into like that flow where I was talking about like flipping the switch a little bit. I'm like, dude, that telling her to come back to my wife. She just has no idea, does not care about golf at all. But I'm like, Kylie, like, if you saw me, it's pretty good right now.
So the game's in a good place, man. I could take some pointers from you, maybe. Yeah, that's like I'm playing a lot, but I'm like, oh man, we got a long ways to go.
Yeah, getting a lesson helped me. I think I like everything in life. Like some in football, we had in your sport, you had coaches your whole life to get there. Like to think you're going to get good in anything else without some guidance or something like that, because that's how I approach golf and like sales at first. But like I just keep banging my head off the wall. I'm like, why am I shaking it? Why am I hooking it? I know, and like once I got a few lessons, I was like, oh, now every time I play, I get better because I have a few, like 2 or 3 things that I think about when like especially when I was throwing, like, hey, if the ball went left, I wasn't stepping left or I wasn't loading where I hit. Now with golf, like if I hook it, it's my hands are coming too quick or my hands are too fast here. It's like it's but you can like apply the same thing in the life. But yeah, that's from a golf standpoint, get a few lessons.
There you go. There you go. I'll take that. I got to take that advice. But all right, man. Well, David, thanks, man. I just appreciate you. Dude, it's cool. Like, man, you played 7 years in the league, and now you're in the middle of this kind of what's next phase. So I just appreciate you sharing it. I mean, hopefully somebody listening in who's like, hey, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but there's guys out you who are sharing the story, and like, hopefully they can even reach out to you. So yeah, if there's anywhere somebody who's interested would want to reach out to you or just where to find you, would you mind just mentioning that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you creating this platform. Like as I mentioned before, we're in the call. Like there's such a need for this. Thanks for having me on and allowing me to share. Instagram, Fales, I think it's Fales 10, Fales D10 maybe. But on Instagram, just maybe just search my name. I don't think there's too many other David Fales out there. So, that's yeah, I respond on there.
Cool. All right, man. Best of luck with what's next on the sale or the tech sales front, and
Yeah.
looking forward to staying in touch, man. Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, same.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
All right.